Well, a very good morning and welcome to Inside Politics, your Sunday premier political show. And as we always say, no other station can do it better than us. And this morning, I like doing shows at night. Mpaka I forget. Tonight, this morning.
But you know it's tonight elsewhere.
It's tonight somewhere else. Oh, they're watching. Oh, so tonight there and this morning here. Yes. Welcome to the show. And the best brains on television this morning. There's a lot to talk about. The headline from the Standard, the Bold newspaper, the storm in Ruto's paradise. I think this has gripped the nation, and everyone is speaking about what has been happening in the country for the last few days. A generation just 15 years below my date of birth have taken the country by storm, and it's a whole new world, and there's a lot of discourse going around. Yesterday, in fact, they held about 7 good hours of discussions online. And I was glad to see some senior government officials. Kipchumba Murkomen was there, Isaac Mwaura was there. And there's a time we saw the X account of the president pop and stay there for a while. Then it just popped out again, right? So there's a lot of people listen. You didn't see it?
We saw it.
Guys took screenshots and shared it. So everyone was listening to what these young people were saying. So on the headline, after crippling the opposition's wing with a soft handshake with Azimio chief Raila Odinga, President Ruto is battling an unexpected uprising by a very enthusiastic, tribeless, and impatient youth. That's right, eh? And waves of economic, social, and political storms with implication on his continued grip on power. This morning, the president is in the county of Nyahururu, where he's attending a church service. We Alive will be taking that live as soon as the president begins to speak. But away from that, I'll be introducing my guests. Yesterday, something remarkable also happened. I call it remarkable because it was unexpected. The government spokesperson, we have to agree, you know, last week, I was sitting here with some gentlemen. When I brought in the name of Isaac Mwaura, they said, no. That guy cannot find his position on this table. We're not listening. So we're okay speaking about what Isaac Mwaura said.
Obviously, the government spokesman, you have to pay attention.
We have to pay attention. Yeah. So he linked what is happening in the country to the Russia-Ukraine war and the position that has been taken by the president. Very interesting. We are waiting for Arnold Maliba. He's UDA communication advisor. He's on his way. My friend Fanyamambo Kinuthia, you know, I had one of our producers downstairs saying, anaitwa Fanyamambo kweli. We dealt with that so many years ago. Anthony Ngeru, thank you so much for coming. Head of communication research at the party UDA, the ruling party. I have to say that. And of course, Dismas. It's been a while. Kwanza pole for the loss of your mom. Thank you for coming this morning. Let's begin with this headline. Is there a storm? Mama Sisi, we're taking this out of context. Let me begin with Fanyamambo.
First and foremost, I am happy that this is happening. I am extremely happy. And the reason I'm happy is because when we started talking about excessive taxation as the next frontier of a war in this country, and I remember this was around September last year, people said we were busybodies. I remember when we went to NADCO and people were presenting all sorts of petitions about counties and everything. I was wearing a t-shirt saying, even God takes only 10%. And I told people, you cannot begin to speak about the cost of living without addressing the taxation that is coming into this country. And then unfortunately, this was going to happen because you cannot wake up as a government and tax people the way you tax them and then misuse their money the way we saw this government misusing our taxes. You know, jets for 200 million, renovations of the DP's house and all sorts of things, and giving first ladies money, people we never voted for, 700 million a piece. And then you go to Korogosho where people have been swept by floods and then each family gets 10,000. But there's one Kenyan, one human being who is getting 700 million and we never voted for this human being. So for us as Kenyans, it's that parody. It's on the one side, there's huge taxation. And on the other side, there is opulence, there's excrescence, there's misuse of public resources, left, right, and center. So this was bound to come. Whether it was going to be Gen Z, let me tell you, even if Gen Z didn't do it, Mama Mboga would have done it because they had started complaining about it. If Gen Z did not do it, even the old people would have done it. And if they didn't do it, even the children in school would have done it because there's no capitation for schools. So this was bound to happen because we've had a government that has been careless with how it's been handling its citizens.
Okay. Bring Anthony. Your perspective, is there a storm in Ruto's paradise or it's a creation of the media?
Well, I think it's a narrative that has been created. What we have experienced in the past 1 week, I would say that personally I have been very, very impressed by it. Of course, coming from the ruling party, many people would expect me to, firefight. But I'd say this is a very important juncture in our politics because we know very well that even the young people and the youth's participation in their civic duty has been very wanting over time, and I feel this is a very positive trajectory. We know very well that Gen Zs and the millennials account for 55% of Kenya's population, and generally 18 to 35 years account to 70% of the population. But when we see those numbers in terms of the number of youths who register as voters, it has been declining over time. When you look at 2017, the figures were at 41%, but in 2022, those numbers went down. So I think this is something which is positive, and I hope that it will be replicated in 2027 when we go to the general elections. Yeah. And we hope that even more millennials will come out and Gen Zs to register as voters so that they partake in their civic duty and select the leaders of their choice.
So you're looking at this the other way. They should at least use the power they have.
Definitely.
On the ballot.
Definitely.
Not on the street.
The power is in their hands. Uh-huh. Yes.
Okay.
What is the question?
The storm. The storm.
Yes. First of all, I trained as an accountant, and what we were told in taxation is that there's not a single human being who wants to pay tax. That is why you have a tax avoidance and tax evasion. So human beings, from the time of birth, they've got a high phobia for tax. And the moment you mention tax, the probability of people rising is extremely high. And that points to the conversation we're having in Kenya today. But outside Gen Z in Kenya, the youth all over the world, in the last few years, they've risen. A few days ago, you recall in the US, university students occupied most of those universities and said to President Biden that we'd like you to review our relationship with Israel. That the way we are supporting Israel and the matters are happening in Palestine, there is need for us to recalibrate our relationship and probably punish companies that are doing business with the Israelis. But when you come to Kenya, the Gen Z have raised very fundamental issues that must be addressed. And the reason why they're raising these fundamental issues is that the gentleman on my left has created a vacuum because UDA has not successfully communicated on President Ruto's agenda. Interventions, what is the import? In my view, if the Kenya Kwanza administration is able to address the communication challenge, then they'll be on a very good path. But as it is, you just mentioned that the government spokesman, in the middle of the night, does a news conference. I mean, who does that in the world? Even if you're looking at a 24-hour, economy. But how do you address such critical issues in the middle of the night from your bedroom? It appears like he was in his bedroom. How do you address those critical issues in that setting? So in my view, what Kenya Kwanza needs to do is to address their communication challenge. And then President Ruto now must take advantage of this crisis. A gentleman by the name Ram Emanuel, then serving as the chief of staff of Bill Clinton, said, you cannot let a crisis go to waste. Now this crisis offers Kenya Kwanza an opportunity to implement a raft of major changes. Like, for instance, Ken Wijungu, you would recall, we've been talking about rationalizing our parastatals. We've got about 250 parastatals, but I'm not sure how many are fit for purpose. So this offers President Ruto an opportunity to clean up those parastatals. This crisis offers President Ruto an opportunity to address the corruption side of his administration. And also, this crisis offers the gentleman on my left the opportunity to come up with a communication strategy that make sure that there is a discipline from Kenya Kwanza, and also to eliminate this conspicuous, arrogant display of wealth. How do you have a few people within the administration giving hefty donations during Harambes every single Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, an average of 20 million, while the rest of the country is wallowing in poverty? We all know that if you take time to study the budget and the Finance Bill 24, it's got amazing proposals that actually address the challenges Gen Z is talking about. But if the head of the National Treasury has not pronounced himself so that people understand the benefits of those proposals, then what is likely to happen is that a few people taking advantage of Gen Z are going to fill Kenya with misinformation and disinformation. When you listen to most of the conversations that have been raised by Gen Z and a few people who are now aligning themselves to Gen Z, it's all misinformation and disinformation. So somebody wakes up in the middle of the night and says that because Gen Z are in the streets, now they're cooking up fictitious stories and people are taking advantage of the opportunity created. So in my view, as I see it in a nutshell, number one is a communication challenge. Number two, this is a good opportunity for President Ruto to implement reforms that Jomo Kenyatta did not have capacity to do, that President Moi did not have capacity to do, President Kibaki and President Kenyatta, because now an environment has presented itself.
It's a more justifiable reason that you can't question.
Because
if the president takes that step, you can't question it right now, because they are baying for blood.
Yeah,
right?
One of the 48 rules of power indicates that when an environment presents itself, when the population is crying for blood, give them blood. So this is the time for President Ruto to implement those measures.
But this is a population, this is a generation that don't care about what you're giving them. They care about what they want from you. For example, hours before the bill was voted, State House was live and the parliamentary group meeting was underway. And they gave a lot of concessions.
Yeah.
Those concessions touch directly to what Fanyamambo was talking about, right? The bread tax, the eco-levy, the motor vehicle circulation tax. You would have thought that that is enough blood at that time, but they didn't care. Straight up, they said, no, it's not about amend, it's about reject in whole.
You know, Ken have been doing a political communication for about 20 years now. When you're coming up with a communication strategy, you must sit back and ask yourself, what audience are you addressing? And what are their expectations? And are you presenting the message in a manner that people will believe what you are talking about?
Yeah.
But if you are pompous and if the message is laden with arrogance, then people will not pay attention to you. The messenger is actually, at this stage, the messenger is more important than the message. It's all about believability. It's all about trust.
That's another thing. This generation doesn't listen to anyone who's speaking to them right now, but you wanted to interject.
You see, I want to put this in context. The President of the Republic of Kenya walks into the Eastleigh and said, I am the Commander-in-Chief of the Republic of Kenya. And I have said that we are going to allow the traders and the business people in Eastleigh to put up buildings that go up to 25, 30 floors. He says that. A month and a half later, he goes to Moi Air Base on their 60th anniversary and says the reason this airbase is not doing so well is because people have put up structures that are so high, it's rendering this airport useless. And we are going to do everything within our power to make sure that those buildings that are higher than they are supposed to be are brought down so that Moi Air Base becomes effective. It tells you of a president who is not consulting with himself. Because the Eastleigh people, the minute he said that, and I'm trying to put this in perspective, when he said that he's going to allow people to put up buildings 25, 30 floors, and then they rushed and actually started getting approvals for those buildings and paid a lot of money, only for him to come to Moi Air Base and say, no, we cannot do that because this is a flight path. Fast forward, the Russian ambassador visits State House. And I remember even another meeting he had with the Prime Cabinet Secretary, Musalia Mudavadi. His name is Dimitri somebody. And he's there, and they promise him and say that we are going to strengthen our bilateral relations and trade relations with Russia. And then a month later, the president goes to a Ukraine thing and starts saying how Russia has invaded Ukraine. How can Kenya take such a position? So the problem we have is an administration that says one thing, and then when the audience changes, they say something different. Do not be surprised. You see what Isaac Mwaura is saying now is horrible, and I wish he can withdraw it. I've always told him that some of the aircraft we have here today that we parade here during Madaraka Day is probably very fit for irrigation and such things. You don't start talking to Russia about things like war with Ukraine when you have some of these aircraft I see turning in the air here, and you're saying that is what we have as Kenya Air Force. We need to be very careful. We are doing trade with Russia. You need to see how much is our trade with Russia, and we are doing trade with Ukraine. If you're a clever nation, don't get interested in their war. In fact, even Isaac Mwaura should not be talking about their war. He should be talking that Russia is our trade partner. What do we sell to them? Ukraine is our trade partner. What do we sell to them? What do we gain from these countries? And how can we enhance our relationship with these two countries? As to whether they are going to fight until the end of the world, that is their own problem. So Isaac Mwaura, in fact, should be denied that microphone. But I am happy because Kenya Kwanza, I told you, Kenya is made of very many qualified people. But the president went and chose all the wrong ones, all the very horrible ones, and then he gave them positions. And then he's wondering what is wrong. I mean, how can you have Isaac Mwaura speaking on behalf of government? How? I mean, look at him. The other day he came and told Kenyans, "Hiyo ni maswali ya kishenzi." Who tells people like that in such a condescending tone? Who wakes up and decides to do a press conference in his bedroom and is addressing Kenyans about something that has just happened? Who did he consult? So I am happy. If Isaac Mwaura is the best mouthpiece for this government, then, they are on a steep hill going down. And you cannot stop your adversaries when they are making mistakes. In fact, if anything, they need 5 Isaac Mwauras to continue giving the wrong information. Then they can finish before 2020. No, for themselves. For us, we already given up on them. In fact, we are wishing the election would come tomorrow morning.
Who is that?
Everybody. I mean, look at what is happening on the streets. Tell me one person who is happy with this government, including some MPs from UDA. You saw Kaimbori voting otherwise. You saw people who just decided Gathoni wa Mushomba. Even these other ones who have voted for this finance bill themselves are doing because they want to please the president. Okay. But I can tell you, if an election was held tomorrow and anything, I'm telling you, anything vied against this government, they would be president.
Okay.
Let me say that this government is one of the best that we've ever had in the past. Since independence, I'd say that. Because if you look at the implementation framework of the government projects and all its policies, they are based on an ideology, and that is uplifting the person who is at the bottom of the pyramid and empowering them. If you look at our manifesto, for the first time ever since independence, our government is committed and intentional about implementation of its manifesto. And if you look at the bottom-up economic transformation agenda, it is based on eradication of hunger, of course, improving foreign exchange balance, inclusive growth, which is also the main objective of our medium-term Plan 4, and also the expansion of our tax base, which has been a huge conundrum. And I'd say that there has been a lot of misinformation that has been peddled, like you have just said. There were some concessions that were made just before the demonstration started. And personally, I'd say that these demonstrations were more justified to happen last year rather than this year. Because if you look at our current performance in terms of cost of living, in terms of the exchange rate, in terms of fuel prices, and overall inflation, it has reduced from a peak of 9.8% in October 2022, and currently we are at 5.1%.
That's inflation?
Yes.
We've never gotten to 9.
It was at 9.8 in October.
No.
Yes.
We've never gotten to 9.
Check your statistics well.
From where?
In Kenya.
Give us a reference point. Because
Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. They usually...
Last year?
No, October 2022.
October 2022, we were at a high of 9.
9.8. Yes.
Our inflation has never hit 9. The most
It
I think
has.
you've done is 6.7.
No, it was at 9.8.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure somebody is doing the checkup.
Right now, yes.
And that has been greatly reflected by even the prices of local commodities in our marketplaces. I think Ken, you'll confirm that one. And back to the finance bill. If you look at the 2023-24 finance bill, it was more. It was more of directed towards direct taxes, and that one was mostly targeting employees. And if you look at what we get as a country, we only get 40% from pay as you earn, and the idea was to explore indirect taxes. And what I would want to say also is that the finance bill is subject to public participation, and that is ideally what was done. So I'd say the government is a listening government. The protests were uncalled for, and I'd say that there's a lot of misinformation that was peddled in the run-up to the demonstrations.
What is this misinformation? Because I have read it.
Yes.
Including, I think, Ababu Namwamba, Alfred Mutua. In fact, Alfred Mutua was more explicit than the rest when he said, you're doing this out of misinformation. The moment you will read, you will realize you are demonstrating a lie, right? Meaning that there is lie that has been peddled. Now, I want to know, who's peddling this lie? Is it the private sector? Is it the how do we call the NGOs and the rest? And what is this lie that has been peddled?
Well, of course, there has been a lot of misconception, Ken. For starters, there is nowhere in the finance bill that we are taxing cancer patients. True or not true?
16%.
That was a propaganda. And if you look at the medium-term plan revenue strategy, our plan is to increase our tax to GDP ratio from 14.1% to at least 20%, and that is in line with our East African targets. More than 33 countries in Africa already are at the 20% mark, and if at all we are supposed to strike a balance, of course we have the huge conundrum, and that is our debt situation, and our debt to GDP is currently at 70%. And for us to strike a balance, we have to...
it's at 8.
It's at 70%.
70%?
Yes.
Not at 80, because if you look at how much money we are paying back, I think it's 8 out of every 10 shillings.
7.
It's untrue.
7.
Yes.
It's untrue. You see,
It's 7 out of 10 shillings.
first he's saying...
Can I just intervene? You know, the beautiful thing with a constitutional democracy, like what we have in Kenya, elections are held after every 5 years. Now, scholars and practitioners have tried to define leadership in many ways.
Are you going away from this point?
No, I'm coming to his points.
Okay.
Because I'm putting up premises. Now, the responsibility of a leader is to define the global picture. For instance, where you want Kenya to go, and you assign resources. Resources will be financial resources through tax, and then human resources by the people you retain to deliver. Now, in the event that you take decisions that are not aligned to national and public interests, that do not reflect the cumulative interest and wishes of Mura, they'll punish you after 5 years. So in my view, President Ruto has got a responsibility to take those painful and hard decisions that will even occasion people to go to the streets, not only Gen Z. Anybody who is unhappy needs to go to the streets because, again, it's captured in the Constitution, and express their views. Now, in the event that after 5 years, the scoreboard is in the negative, then people will not vote for President Ruto. They'll ask him to take a walk and go home. If he has delivered, he's going to be re-elected. That is the beauty of the constitutional democracy, and in a country where you have free and fair elections every 5 years. Number two, what Gen Z are saying is that Kenya's definition of public participation is not well structured. That in fact you can give views, wherever the government wants to do anything, you can give views, and at the end of the day, the views have not been captured. So what Gen Z have indicated, they want to be in the middle of the conversation. they're no longer going to sit by this roadside when decisions are being taken.
But where was
We
that
want to
realization?
be
Because that is what I
conversation.
want to do. The devil, I mean, the elephant in the room is the realization. Because my point is, there are these accusations, right, about how this happened. And he says very clearly, this was not time for demonstrations. The time for demonstrations was last year. Right? So suddenly, where is this realization coming from that you're talking about?
I'll tell you.
That indeed we need to get out of the street.
Now, the realization has come from the fact that when they took office last year, they said, we have just inherited a dilapidated economy.
Yes.
They'll be doing a policy review. Give us time to come with our first budget. So they came with the first budget.
Yes.
And then during the second budget, they've said we made very good progress, but we want to raise an additional revenue, I think about 300 billion.
Yeah.
And these are our proposals. So the National Treasury comes up with the proposals, of course, after a cabinet session. But the challenge is that at the head of the National Treasury, the cabinet secretary responsible, he speaks in jargon, a language that a majority of Kenyans do not understand.
I need
Actually,
to
you
take
may
a
think,
break and, yeah.
you may think that he's doing a master's or a PhD class. That's why I'm saying that if they break it down into palatable portions that people can read and understand.
So to you, you're thinking that it's the understanding that is causing all this.
It's a communication challenge, number one. And number two, coming up with some interventions on the face of which appear to be ridiculous, but after pressure, they decided to amend. Like, for instance, when you want to tax bread, I mean, understand that the majority of Kenyans consume bread.
Okay.
That doesn't make sense.
But Ishunga sat here and told me that bread is actually food for the elite and the rich. Fanyamambo, we need to take a break.
You know, I can't allow this to go unanswered. They are talking of misinformation. Are they saying that there was no increase in taxation on pads for women? Are they saying that there was no increase? In fact, are they saying that there was no increase in taxation for bread, which we campaigned against? Are they saying there was no motor vehicle circulation tax in that draconian bill?
Yes, exactly.
There was no motor vehicle.
That's what we're saying.
It was there.
That's what we're saying.
Motor vehicle taxation.
You increase. Fanyamambo, you increase if it is effected.
No.
The motor vehicle circulation tax was proposed.
It was a horrible proposal.
It was a proposal. It was a proposal. So that is not an
Which we
implement.
rejected. We are rejecting the
you didn't
proposals.
reject because it was
We are on the
effected.
streets.
It was a proposal. You are not there. You
What
are
do you
in
mean?
the
I
military.
have the clips of myself. I have so many clips of myself. If you want me to play them,
You see,
wait,
Fanyamambo cannot
wait,
show up.
Maliba,
Yes.
you can't just show up and take over this. Can you let his statement drop on the table?
As in, if I allow an injustice to go on air,
What is
You will
justice?
come back.
this is an injustice of
You will
information.
come back. No, but what you're telling us, it's what was a proposal that had not been implemented as a
So you
result.
were supposed to
should
keep
have not
quiet.
spoken
In,
about
20,
it.
in
because it's a
2018,
proposal.
in
It's so
2018
sad.
there was a pollution tax by the Uhuru administration. He didn't say the things he's saying here, and I was doing shows with him, by the way.
My friend.
It was a proposal.
Maliba,
Well, it appears that the two of us are
with your
outstanding
pencil.
personal issues.
We are talking about this finance bill
yes.
that was
We
proposed.
cannot go back to 2020.
And it was horrible.
History is important.
And it was bad. And I keep telling Mariba, if you are being driven in a bus and the driver is driving horribly, anapiga kona, anapigiwa honi, akienda hivi ameingia karibu ingia kwa mtaro, you cannot start saying that we shall not discuss this current driver because people are not discussing the driver who brought us from Kisumu to Nairobi, and now we are in a bus from Nairobi to Mombasa. Hata hatujafika Emali, everybody is hooting at our bus driver. We have to discuss this current driver, and we have to say this current driver is not driving us properly. And when you come up with a proposal that is going to raid my salary, by the way, I don't work for government, I work for myself. So when you decide that you're going to plan for my salary, you want new houses, you plan for my salary. You decide you want to go to the US at 200 million, you're budgeting for my salary. Everything that you want to do, including building for me a house and I have one, you want to plan for my salary. And that's why you are saying no. You wake up and every decision you want to make.
How do we build for people who cannot afford to have their own houses then?
That is, you see, let me tell you, Uhuru still continued building these houses. They were there. In fact, some of the ones they've launched, some of the ones they've launched were built by the previous administration. Okay. But we didn't see this horrible taxation that looks like it's actually robbery.
Arnold Maliba, Communication Advisor, UDA Party, thank you so much for coming this morning. We take a break, we'll be back.